Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Today we're going to talk a lot about veterans. 436-ME-TV option 11. We'll run down some of the races from last night's election and talk about the Legion of Valor with a special guest here in the studio. Call in and turn down the sound if you do. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
Today's program, of course, is veterans. We're going to talk about the Legion of Valor, but before we get into that, I'll mention the phone number one more time, 436-ME-TV option 11. You're watching us on Comcast, channel 187, 43.6, 13.1. The replay later today at 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and also we're up on YouTube. But I do want to run down the races. Very interesting last night what happened. Of course, locally, I want to talk about just the winners. Betty Yee, of course, beat Ashley Swearingen in that controllers race. You had I guess an upset in the making, you could say. Johnny Teixeira, a virtual unknown, spent $0 advertising, is about 800 or less than 1,000 votes ahead of Jim Costa, I should say. He's been in office in Congress for 10 years. You still have the provisional ballots to go through, also the absentee ballots. So this one not over, even though 100% of the precincts are reporting. Teixeira leading Costa by less than 1,000 votes, with still about 10 days or 2 weeks before they count those other ballots. Also the big winners last night, Valadeo, Andy Viadak, Lisa Gamoyan winning by 51 to 49% over Rachel Hill. Cal Johnson, Valerie Davis, Brooke Ashton in the school board races. Brian Pacheco over Blanc Jong. Buddy Mendez over Daniel Parra. And Kerry Catalano appears to have won that council seat over Esmeralda Soraya. Proposition 1, approved. Proposition 2, approved. Proposition 45, 46, no across the board. 47 was a resounding yes. And Proposition 48 failed here in the state of California. And just a couple of other notes, a sweeping victory for the Republicans across the board. They take control of the Senate for the first time in years. They have a count of 52 seats now in the Senate to 47 for the Democrats. 3 seats, including Alaska and Louisiana, remain. I think right now, we don't know the results yet. We may not know for days. The Republicans taking Iowa, Colorado, North Carolina, Arkansas, just to name a few of the states in the Senate races. In the House, the GOP could have up to 246 seats. That's the most since 1948. All right, a program note here on Connect with Me and Me TV and all the Ventura television broadcasting stations. Starting on Veterans Day, there is a new series that is going to start on 3 of the Ventura broadcasting stations. And it kind of relates to our topic today. We're talking about veterans, World War II, the Legion of Valor. It's a World War II action drama series, and it's called Combat Report. It premieres, as I said, on Veterans Day on Tough TV on 3 of the Ventura broadcasting stations, 13.4, 13.2, and 13.7. Here, my friends, is a preview.
It was 1943 when I went to war. I was almost 19. Some things about those years I've forgotten. Others I'd rather forget.
Listen, I ain't got nobody back home. At least you got somebody. Should hang on to that.
Tank division came through those trees. Get help! Tell them what's coming. Is this heaven? Hell for sure.
And of course, again, that debuts on Veterans Day, 13.4, 13.2, and 13.7. Ventura Broadcasting, of course, all three of those channels. It's called Combat Report. Kind of ties in with our subject today with the Legion of Valor and Veterans Day less than a week away. How many of you know that for the last 23 years we have had a Legion of Valor museum right here in the city of Fresno, the only one of its kind across the country? Let's roll the videotape and I'll show you what I'm talking about, my friends. This is a very interesting place. If you have never been there, this is on your to-do list. Let's take you inside the museum, which houses hundreds of military items, artifacts, photos, official government documents, and actual uniforms used in combat. All items, by the way, donated by some military families. 50 of those uniforms on display in the lobby, hundreds more in storage in the warehouse. Now, you know, if you happen to look up Valor in the dictionary, it means great courage in the face of danger. The Legion of Valor was established long ago, back in 1890, to honor those who defended our country with incredible courage, commitment, to try to promote patriotism as well. But the only museum in the entire country, as mentioned, is right here, and you're looking at it in the city of Fresno. Members have received the Medal of Honor and 3 crosses: the Distinguished Service Cross, that's for the Army, the Navy Cross, and the Air Force Cross. Live in our studio right now is Mike Harris. He works at the museum. He's a veteran. He's here to take your phone calls. We'll talk about Veterans Day coming up, the big Veterans Day parade. Also, honor flight, another flight taking place going back to Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, to look at and view the War Memorial back there. It took place just recently. They took off from Castle Air Force Base just north of here. And also, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on overseas with ISIS. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Glad you're here on a Wednesday morning, and we're here for the full 60 minutes, 11 o'clock, and those I think those races last night during the election, Mike, kind of surprising, huh? Did it kind of take you by surprise, too?
Well, not so much in California. Across the nation, it's kind of to what was expected, I think.
Yeah, I think the Costa race is what shocked everybody. That's the big upset here in the Valley, because
Right.
Teixeira just coming out of nowhere, and less than 1,000 votes separate both candidates. Of course, Teixeira with what? How many votes ahead is he? About 700 and something.
Last I heard, about 770, something like that.
770, but you still got those provisionals
And the absentees.
the absentees,
Correct.
and that'll take another 10 days, maybe 2 weeks to siphon through all those ballots. That'll be your job, by the way, in the next 10 days. Hey, we've got a phone call right off the bat. Let's take it, and we'll talk about the Legion of Valor Museum here real quick. Good morning, caller. Please, what's your question?
Yeah, Mike Harris. I'm very interested in how they are awarded these Valor awards to individuals. You know, I know they probably save lives or not, but I've never really have found out what it means and how are they awarded. And you know, like when the president puts the award around their neck or wherever. You know,
Okay.
I know there's probably thousands of individuals, but how are they awarded? I mean, who picks them out?
Good
you know?
question. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, as I understand, I've certainly never had anything my direction that way, but as I understand it, the merits of what one service that warranted that award usually has to be documented and witnessed by multiple individuals.
On the combat
on
field?
the combat field at the time of the action when it's taking place.
Does it have to be documented somehow?
Well, yes, they usually will. Somebody will, you know, document or record or report forward what action was taken and you know, what this individual did to, you know, in a meritorious or courageous way, and then that goes up the chain of command, and then the superior officers will, you know, continue that until it gets to the point of the government making that award. We have a young fellow here that works for the Fresno Police Department, Jared Kraft, who was awarded the Navy Cross for his actions in Iraq. And as my understanding is, the battle that he was involved in was actually partially recorded by a drone. This was some years back, but back when the drones were kind of a new thing within the.
What was his service over there? What did he do?
He was a Marine Corps. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he was awarded the Navy Cross.
Right.
You know, the Marine Corps falls within the jurisdiction of the Navy, and he was in a ground battle in one of the major cities. I can't recall which one, where they were undertaking heavy fire. He was in a building that was blown up by one of our own tanks, and he was injured, and then fought his way back to save a couple of his folks, and you know, and then they ultimately won the fight. Very courageous and very admirable on his part for his combat actions. But in talking with him, he just says, well, you know, I just got mad and I had to do what I had to do. And I think that's the quote that you'll hear from almost all the fellows that have won these major awards.
Yeah.
Just doing their job.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. And so sometimes it takes years to, in fact, award some of these medals. Why is that?
Well, I think it's documentation. You know, some of these fights that have taken place, you know, they're amongst the individuals that are participating, you know, and later on when these all reports come to one central location, then they get recognized, and then the awards are recommended appropriately.
Is that right?
And
Okay, so that's kind of how it works, because they have to be reviewed, the documents.
Right.
And sometimes that can take a long time, because you're
Correct.
looking at probably thousands of documents through those documents, and probably talking about hundreds and hundreds of soldiers that you have to determine, is this person worthy of a medal, and what medal would it be?
Well, I think too it's partially because, you know, everybody that describes an event is going to tell the story differently. You know, what you see and I see is, you know, if we watch a traffic accident, you know, well, whose fault was it? Well, sometimes, you know, it's a different perspective on how things took place.
With the Republicans with a clean sweep across the country, taking over the Senate again, and now, you know, you may have 246 seats in the House, a record that hasn't, we haven't seen numbers like that since the late 40s, okay, in the House. Will it make a difference in terms of our military, do you think, or is it still up to the Commander-in-Chief?
Well, it's ultimately up to the Commander-in-Chief, but I certainly hope the Republican influence is going to do things to bolster up the military's budgets and stop some of the rollbacks and cutbacks that the military's endured in this administration. I know, you know, budgets all along the West Coast and our military installations have really been slashed. It's perspective on the party, I think. You know, the Democratic Party, they're more concerned with social issues, where the Republican Party is probably more attuned to national defense and that sort of spending. So hopefully they're going to be able to work together to where this can be balanced out a little bit and the military can be rebuilt back to a safe level.
Yeah, you think that'll happen?
Well, as we
Not
know,
sure, huh?
when you have one party in the White House and another party controlling the Senate and the House, you know, there's going to be conflicts of opinion, and, you know, it can lead to gridlock, which...
And now there could be many bills come out of the House and the Senate, passed by both, and maybe vetoed by the President.
Correct.
So he'll be forced to play his hand one way or the other.
Right. And I would fully expect that.
Yeah. Okay. Talking to Mike Harris, the Legion of Valor Museum, right here in the city of Fresno. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Do call in. Got an open line. Ask your question. We're here for the next 45 minutes. Back in a moment.
It was 1943 when I went to war. I was almost 19. Some things about those years I've forgotten. Others I'd rather forget.
Listen, I ain't got nobody back home. At least you got somebody. Should hang on to that.
The tank division came through those trees. Get help! Tell them what's coming. Is this heaven? Hell for sure.
Back here on the program on Connect with Me. You're watching us on Comcast 187 at 43.6 and of course now 13.1. And Mike Harris from the Legion of Valor is here talking a little bit about the election last night. Let's talk about the Legion of Valor Museum. Actually, before I do that, I want to mention that Art Hill, 99 years old, unfortunately passed away yesterday. Talk a little bit about Art.
That's correct. Art was truly a war hero during the World War II era. Tremendous fellow, had a remarkable career as a soldier as well as in a personal life here in Fresno. He owned the Hill Oil Company. He's been in a convalescent home for the last 3 years, and like you mentioned, yesterday he passed away. And it is really a big loss to our veteran community, as Art was a true inspiration and a leader within all our veterans groups. And he, along with a few others, are really responsible for us having this national icon here in Fresno, which is the Veterans Memorial Museum. The vision and securing the finances and thousands of hours of volunteer work to recruit the folks that made what we have put it in place.
We've got a lot of footage that we want to get to because there is so much to look at and see inside the museum. Well, let's roll one of the videos right now if we can. Tell us what's the square footage of, say, the museum? It's over at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, right? That's the museum itself.
The building, from documents I've seen, is about 110,000 square feet, and that covers three floors basically. The upper floors are basically just hallways that lead you to what used to be the upper balcony seating area when it was a entertainment venue.
Right.
But we take in about a little over 10,000 square feet of floor space on the ground floor, and then we share the other half of that with the Children's Musical Theater, who do stage shows, and that's sort of a entertainment process.
And what kind of artifacts are in the museum?
Well, we have artifacts that date back to the Civil War, sparingly on that part because those are hard to come by. And then World War I, we have a little bit more of a collection there. World War II is primarily the focus of most of the artifacts, and that kind of being because these gentlemen before me that established this museum and began the collection were all World War II veterans and Korean veterans. So the artifacts of that war are more prevalent and easier to come by. In later conflicts, there's been such a restriction on bringing home what we call them battlefield trophies. You can't just pack stuff that you've collected overseas and put it in your duffel bag and bring it home. The government restricts it. You know, used to be able you could pack up a machine gun from a German soldier and bring it home with you. Well, that's not the case anymore. So the later wars, you know, you're more restricted to just common everyday items, you know, like maybe a uniform shirt or something like that. But
do you have any German artifacts in your museum? We
have a great collection of German artifacts
from the war,
from the Nazi regime and so forth. Because,
such as what?
Well, we have weapons, of course, youth daggers. We have machine guns. We have many uniforms. Everything that would probably a German soldier would use in the field or in the command ranks.
Really?
And to mention, all the weapons are non-functional, so we'll put that out there to the public too. Nothing works. We've all had it decommissioned. But we have all kinds of different varieties of that type of ordnance and things from the German side of the conflict. Because it was brought home as battlefield trophies.
Right. They brought them home, those soldiers that won on the battlefield. And what other kinds of items do you have from our soldiers? You have combat boots, you have uniforms, you have weapons.
We have a display of our military uniforms going back to World War I. Well, actually even to the Revolutionary War, a couple examples. For the different branches of service, along with different ranks and military occupation specialties. So it's very well represented as to what maybe your grandfather may have worn during his service during World War II, or Vietnam, or Korea.
How did you acquire the items from the Civil War? And what kind of items are there?
Well, we have old belt buckles, ammunition. I think we have a couple medical kits that a field surgeon might have had, and some old photographs that were taken in the old tintype style photography. But like I say, the Civil War stuff is hard to come by, so we don't have a lot of that. But what we do have is interesting to read about.
How do you know and how do you verify all these items that come in, and that you can reassure yourself that they're authentic?
Well, I think it's like looking at any antique. You can pretty well look at an item and say, well, this is an old piece. But we also have our docent staff that are remarkable historians. And a couple fellows in particular, they can look at an old uniform and tell you what regiment it was issued to, about the time period and so forth, just because of their familiarity with the stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're very talented in that regard. Stan Wells is, I always advertise him as the best historian in Fresno when it comes to military issues.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us will look at a chest full of medals and have no clue what they are, but he knows.
Right. So when a person donates an item, like let's say they have their father or grandfather's uniform, maybe weapon from World War II, I'm just using that as an example, and they donate it to the museum, does it stay there forever?
Yes, we tell everybody, and I do tell everybody, that whatever you donate to our museum is in perpetuity. I don't want at some point in time somebody to come in and look for Grandpa's uniform and us not be able to produce it. It may not be on display because we may have multiple pieces of the same thing, which serves no purpose to put up a bunch of one particular thing. And so it'll be in storage. And that
Where is it in storage? Is it on site at the museum, or is it at a different location?
Yes, it's on site at the museum. We have a facility there to keep it secure.
Right. So if you walk in and you don't see your father's uniform hanging from the rafters or in a glass case, immediately you know it's probably in storage.
Yes, and we can pretty well assure that. We fill out a document and give the contributor a copy of it, and then we have a curator that will log it and categorize it and put it away. So it's generally just a matter of just a few minutes we can go and find it.
Right. So the public out there can be reassured if you want to donate something. How would they do that? What contact number would you give out?
Well, you basically just walk into the museum with it and say, "This is what I have," and we will take.
You fill papers out.
Yeah, there's a short form you fill out as to what it is, and it's tax deductible. You can write it off because we are a 501c3. And so you place your own value on what you believe it's worth, and then we'll accept it at that.
How about a telephone number and a location for the Legion of Valor?
Okay, the address is 2425 Fresno Street, the Memorial Building, Fresno Memorial Building, and we're at 498-0510.
Okay, say that again.
498-0510.
Okay, all right. We're talking with Mike Harris. He is from the Legion of Valor Museum here in the city of Fresno. So if you have something to donate, or even if you want to go by and look at the items in there, they have artifacts from World War II, World War I, virtually all, even dating back to the Civil War. So go and check it out. 436-MeTV option 11. Got some open lines here on a Wednesday morning on Connect with Me. Back in a moment.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on the show on Connect with Me this morning, and Mike Harris is here. And so what do you think about, I mean, we got this new program coming up. It's called Combat Report. It's kind of an action drama series. World War II premieres on Tough TV Veterans Day. What do you think about, or what goes through your mind when you see war movies or action series like this?
Well, my review of them sometimes might be critical to the point where I enjoy the portrayal of the action that you're watching, but I always look at, well, how authentic is it? Maybe down to looking at the uniforms and what action's being taken at a particular battle that they're proposing to be involved in. It just is. It's kind of like if you you know a little about something and somebody else is trying to tell the story and you know it's inaccurate, and you say, well, hey, I got you. You know, it's a little bit different, but Usually I enjoy the portrayal, and certainly when it comes to the point where you're enhancing the view of the military to the public and letting them know that there has been tremendous sacrifices.
For example, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, that was a very good movie. I think that particular movie depicted quite accurately some of the battles that the troops went through during World War II. I don't know that the actual event ever occurred. I've never read or heard anything of that. It's a Hollywood depiction. But, you know, the Sullivan brothers, you know, was based on the fact that, you know, 5 of their sons were all killed on one event. So kind of enhancing the military's position, we will not put an entire family in that position again.
But the entire portrayal of what happened at, you know, Omaha Beach there was a pretty accurate portrayal, in your opinion?
Well, talking with veterans that actually experienced that, like we mentioned Art Hill, he landed at Omaha Beach. Yes, that was very accurate. It was just a horrendous bloodbath with casualties on both sides. You know, we always think about how bad our troops had it when they stormed those beaches, but the German side, they took a beating also.
Right, and the Germans were looking down from the cliffs, right?
Right, cliffs.
Looking down at our U.S. troops coming in on the off the water.
They had gun emplacements and were fairly secured, but then again, you know, we were able to get behind those lines and start destroying those. So.
And you wonder how. How did they do it? I mean, when they were at a disadvantage right off the get-go, as soon as they got off the boats, boom.
Right. It was a horrendous bloodbath. We can call it that.
Yeah, no question about that. And so, okay, honor flight. We just experienced another honor flight going back to D.C., carrying those World War II veterans back there for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, back to the nation's capital to look at the War Memorial. And if you haven't seen it, we got some video of it. We'll roll it now. And it is a beautiful sight to see. The flight, honor flight, taking off from Castle Air Base the first time, and you've been on an honor flight.
Yes,
how many? 2?
I went on the first honor flight.
You haven't been since,
out of
right?
Fresno. Right.
Okay.
We certainly want to allow those veterans that haven't been the opportunity to go, and I wouldn't want to take up a seat space and omit one of those fellows.
Well, is it? You know, is it educational, would you say, for the World War II vets?
Oh, most definitely. I think the highest percentage of the guys, by and large, have never been to Washington, and then whenever they get to see that monument that's in tribute to their service, it's quite powerfully emotional, and I think it's an experience most of them that will never forget.
And there's part of the memorial at night. We can see it right there. So what's the reaction, the initial reaction from the veterans when they see this thing for the first time? It was hard fought to try to get this memorial up and running. Of course, Bob Dole, remember the former senator, World War II hero, was instrumental in achieving his goal and you know, making this thing happen. What's the initial reaction that you found when you went on that initial honor flight there?
Well, I can relate to you my own personal experience. I went as a guardian, as all the able-bodied folks do, and you have your veteran that you escort 24 hours a day. My veteran, Mr. Overstreet from Madera, when I wheeled him up to the monument, there's a wall there that has 4,000 gold stars on it. Each star represents 100 lost servicemen. When he read the plaque depicting what the monument represented, and he just sort of drifted away in thought for a moment, and I just backed away and let him think. And then what he had done is gone back and relived that battle to where one of his best friends was shot through the head and killed. And it was really emotional to him, and but I think healing in a way, because he sees that now that the country has the ability to appreciate what these fellows went through. So it's an emotional downer in a way, because you go back to that point in time when these horrendous things happened in your life, and then it goes to a high where you know that now you're appreciated.
Right, so it conjures up all those memories, which maybe have been hidden for
70 years.
70 years. it conjures up all of the emotions again, as if it had just taken place yesterday, I would imagine, right?
And I think that's a sentiment a lot of the folks relive at least several times through the trip with the different things that we participated in.
Yeah, and for you personally, what was it like?
Anytime I'm in the presence of those gentlemen, I feel honored, because those were the people that, you know, the term greatest generation, that was applied to them for a very good reason, and they truly are. Self-sacrifice beyond imagination and comprehension. Some of those gentlemen joined the Army voluntarily and never came home for 4 years. Far different from the way it is now with our basically year-long deployments when the guys get sent overseas. So, you know, they were there for the long haul to bring democracy and freedom back to this world. And who knows where we'd be today if it hadn't been for that generation.
Yeah. Mike Harris is the guest here from the Legion of Valor Museum here in the city of Fresno. Veterans Day coming up. We'll talk a little bit about the parade coming up on Tuesday and what to expect there. Your phone calls, hey, we got some open lines, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
This fall, there is a place, familiar and inviting, timeless and warm. Me TV, a place all your own that you can call home.
Hi, honey, I'm home.
This fall, home is where you'll find me.
You mean to tell me that's all there is to it?
That's all.
Me TV Fresno, channel 43.6 and Xfinity 187.
Ladies' Night was started in his honor. Bar stools pulled themselves out for him. The only thing Chuck Norris is afraid of is her. Cheers is the most memorable bar in the world. You may not always watch comedy, but when you do, watch Cheers.
Me TV Fresno, channel 43.6 and Xfinity 187.
Back here on the show, we got some open lines, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Do call in if you want to ask a question. Getting back to some of the veterans here, we're going to roll some videotape here of the honor flight and the veterans. They're taking part in this. And how many honor flights have we had now, Mike, would you say?
I believe we're on our fifth one now.
Fifth one.
The last one out of Merced from Castle Air Base.
Yeah. And you know, these are the money is coming from where? Private donations.
Private donations, right? The flight is split between Guardians and the World War II veterans, and the Guardians pay their own way. And then
how much is it for a Guardian to go?
The first trip that I participated in, it was $1,000.
Okay.
And that covers your airfare and your motel room, and kind of, I think, absorbs some of the cost of the veteran too.
And these are some of the veterans here on scene in D.C. at the memorial and enjoying the experience. And you know, that the memorial is really honoring them.
Yes, it is, and I think it's a. In fact, this footage is of the trip that I was on, so these gentlemen are all familiar to me. And like I said, my perspective was just one of respect and honor to these fellows, because you know, the sacrifice that they put forth for this country is unequaled, unmatched. And I don't think you could even imitate it in any form or fashion.
No, it can't be. Anyway, we have a call. Caller, what's your question?
A quick question for Mike. I'd like to ask him why there was more of an honor, like in World War I and II. Let's say like Japanese and Vietnam and such wars. Because when they came back, there was always that, like a parade, you know, they served, you know, for us to have our freedom. But like the present day wars, like, you know, Afghanistan and after the 9/11, there wasn't so much a hoorah, you know.
Okay.
And could you tell me that?
All right, thank you.
Well, that would be based on my opinion. And what I believe is that when World War II, you know, news of what was happening around the world wasn't in your living room every night.
Slow in getting here.
Slow in getting here. You know, of course, the major events like when surrenders were signed or things like that.
Isn't it true, Mike, that people had to go into movie theaters to find out what was going on overseas?
Yes, they had the film footage like in between the movies and so forth if you wanted to see what was happening. Now, every night you can turn the TV on and go to Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria.
Or on the internet.
Or in the internet. It's there every day. So I don't think the big tributes that are actually, I think, due our soldiers ever gets to them because it's an everyday thing.
So I guess kind of to pick up on the caller's question, why did it take so long for these World War II veterans to be recognized, to be honored, to have these men on display and honor them as war heroes?
Well, in that day, in that era, there were so many people around the country that got behind the war effort to defeat this global threat that the country was facing, along with Europe and the Southeast Asia areas. And so it was just an everyday thing. It wasn't something that was spectacular or special. We all got a job to do, so we all went and did it. And so that doesn't make it a highlight to any one country because everybody was involved in it. It was a world war. And the monument itself, I think it had to do with just finances to a large degree because it cost millions of dollars to construct it. And then, of course, you have political agendas and opinions as to whether it should have been built.
Yeah, and we have some more video of some of the veterans, World War II vets coming back from D.C. But I guess my extension to that question is, why did it take so long for us to recognize World War II veterans? It seems like we didn't really do that until Tom Brokaw's book came out in the late 90s on The Greatest Generation. Of course, that book, you know, most of us read, at least I would assume. I don't know. It was on the bestseller list, New York Times. Why did it take so long, so many years?
Well, you know, when the Vietnam veterans came home, you know, they had issues where they weren't appreciated. And like I say, that war was in your living room every night. And we had the protests and the people that didn't believe the war was necessary on our part and so forth. Well, whenever the movement, the tide changed a little bit to where, well, maybe we should appreciate these fellows. And then thus we had the Vietnam War wall constructed. And then the World War II, you know, there certainly had to be a sentiment out there about, well, hey, what about these guys too? And so I think just as the generations went by, that people began to realize that this type of effort and sacrifice needed to be recognized. So I think it was just a timing thing all along with the way the country was viewing these conflicts that we've been involved in.
Do you think without Tom Brokaw's book that the surge by the American people to honor these folks here that served in World War II, do you think that would have happened, or do you think we would have been stagnated in the Vietnam War in that era?
No, I think his writings were very much a contributor.
Instrumental?
But it would have come along anyway, I believe. You know,
but his book was instrumental in launching this whole nationwide
very much so.
Surge.
Well, he was the face that you got to see regarding this. But I do think in time that all these military accomplishments or participations would have come to light.
But you have to wonder why, because there have been so many books written prior to that about World War II,
right?
And about the U.S. veterans that served overseas during that time period. You just wonder why his book put everything over the top.
Well, I think his tribute was mostly to the point of appreciation. And that's what I don't think had ever been really published before, you know, not in a total text where it was throughout.
And you think that's what grabbed the public's attention?
Yeah, I think it had something to do with it in that line. Accumulated with the time factors, you know, it had been so long, you know, and you know, when people were starting to realize that these generations of World War II veterans are starting to pass on. You know, there's not that many of them left. You know, there's some figure out there that, you know, over 1,000 a day die. And I think the country's starting to realize we need to appreciate these gentlemen because they're almost gone.
Right. And without them,
we wouldn't have the democracy or the free country we live in.
Yeah. Mike Harris is here. Got to take another break. We're back on Connect with Me, 436-ME-TV, option 11. We're going to talk about the parade. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on overseas with our current generation. of Army veterans that are overseas trying to fight ISIS. Back in a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Back here on the program with Mike Harris of the Legion of Valor Museum, the only one of its kind here in the entire country, and it's right here in the city of Fresno. If you haven't been over to see it, it's a interesting trip. Do you take field trips over there? Or do
Absolutely.
You take the kids over there?
One of our greatest patronages, probably half of our visitors are high school and ROTC groups and elementary schools.
Yeah.
We have a great participation from the school districts.
Yeah. You're open all year round, right?
7 days a week from 10 till 3. We're the only thing I can think of in Fresno that's free. We don't, there's no admission.
You don't charge?
No charge. So
yeah, but you're closed on all the major holidays, right?
Christmas and the New Year's. Other than that, we're
open Thanksgiving?
We're open on Thanksgiving.
Really?
We're there all the time.
Huh. And open on Easter?
Well, Easter's on Sunday, so we're closed on Sundays.
You're closed on Sundays.
Sundays is the day off.
All right, that's right. Sunday's your day off. Yeah, that's right. So the parade is next Tuesday.
Yes.
Which is Veterans Day.
Correct.
What does the parade mean to you?
Well, it's an accumulation of all the different branches of services and all the different sacrifices, and recognize those folks that participated in those, and it's quite a tribute. And it's one of the largest parades in the country. You know, we do have a really patriotic valley, and the community of Fresno is very patriotic, and it gives those folks a chance to get out and be recognized and appreciate those who are being recognized.
Right. And what time does the parade start?
I believe it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock in the morning. It starts where in Fresno?
It'll be just to the south of City Hall, and it'll come up P Street, down Fresno Street, and I believe makes a southbound turn at M Street.
All right. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, talking about the World War II veterans, the men who actually fought the battles were very special men in all sorts of ways. But there were also hundreds of men in staff support positions behind them. And those men served for the whole duration, 4 years plus, away from home, just like the ones on the battlefield did.
Yeah.
And they need to have a word as well.
Right. And I would imagine, since caller, you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. Since you're a woman, there are probably a lot of women that were in support positions during the war as well.
Yes.
So
I have a friend whose mother was a riveter at Lockheed in L.A. My family my grandfather raised poultry and rabbits to sell for meat for the neighbors.
Yeah.
And all sorts of civilians, as well as the people who were drafted. My uncle was assigned as a cook, and he was shipped to the Aleutians, and he spent 4 years in that ice and snow up there.
Mm-hmm.
My stepfather was drafted, and he was a flight instructor in the Aleutians for the time period that he was attached to the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
So there were all sorts of people in service positions, support positions, that were drafted and stayed away from home for the whole duration, just like the men on the battlefields.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate
And the battlefield people definitely are special.
Yep. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. It's a great call. And what are we doing to honor those female veterans that were in World War II in those behind the scenes positions? They weren't allowed on the front lines, but should we honor them as well? They were heroes too.
Oh, absolutely. That caller was spot on the mark. You know, every effort takes more than just one person. You know, you have the man up on the front line maybe firing a rifle, but somebody had to make that ammunition, somebody had to make that uniform he's wearing, somebody had to get him there, somebody had to supply the food and water necessary to survive. It was all a team effort. basically, and in that particular era, by the public, by the population.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was supported by war bonds, rationing stamps, you know, everything you can think of to help fund this fight against global terrorism at that point in history. And so it was a national effort, and she's very correct. We all are familiar with the Rosie the Riveter lady, you know, that helped build aircraft. Incidentally, that lady is still with us, and she lives in Madeira. I don't recall her name, but she became an iconic symbol for the women in the support of our military services.
Were there women during World War II that were either on or near the battlefield in support positions?
Oh yes, you have the nursing staff, the medical corps, and so forth. We had the contingent of Army Air Corps lady pilots that shuttle aircraft, you know, over to the battlefronts. You know, not necessarily participating in the fights that I'm aware of, but, you know, those planes had to get there somehow because our pilots were in short supply and they were fighting the fight. So you had to get that stuff delivered. So the ladies in the war and the civilian staff absolutely were crucial to getting what we were able to accomplish done.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes support staff and groups supporting the people on the ground on the front lines, the ones actually shooting the rifles and the weapons, just as important as those people on the front lines.
Oh, very definitely so.
Yeah, and so that's the best call of the day. That caller was
yes, and I thank her for bringing that out. That was a very good point to bring forward.
Before we get into what's going on today, talk a little bit about, you know, what African Americans endured at that time. Were they allowed on the front lines in some cases, or most cases, or you know, we're talking the early to mid 40s now during World War II. What was their status during the war?
Well, you know, shamefully, the military at that point was still segregated.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the African Americans did fight and participate in the battlefield, you know, to the point of being in the thousands. I do know that. You had the Tuskegee Airmen. They had their own Air Force, basically, that Eleanor Roosevelt helped establish, fought in Italy. Very accomplished at protecting our bombing aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the services were still segregated, and they did endure numerous prejudices and so forth that kind of kept them out of the limelight and out of the forefront. And for that type of history, I hope we never go back to that and have to repeat such things.
What do you think about when you look back and you see celebrities that actually took place or took part in the war? I mean, two that come to mind right off the bat is Elvis and Ted Williams, who played, and if you don't know who Ted Williams was, former Major League Baseball player for the Boston Red Sox, and probably considered one of the greatest hitters of all time.
Yeah. Well, coincidentally that you asked that question, we have just completed a new display at our museum that showcases Hollywood Goes to War. That's the title for it, and is focused all around those movie stars, movie actors of that period that all went to war. And it's stunning to see how many there were, hundreds.
Yeah.
Went to war, did their part, and came home and went back to work in the movie industry.
Good morning, caller. What's your question?
Real quick question to Mike. You know, the United States used to be probably the strongest of all the nations to be the power. Okay, and for some reason the United States has lost that I guess scare tactic where, you know, the United States, you don't fool around with them. Now with ISIS being in a lot of countries, you know, taking these small nations, all that, no nation comes to aid the United States, even in the United Nations. Why is it that we have to be the peacekeeper for all nations? In other words, like in the United Nations, they should be helping us to get rid of ISIS and terror groups, okay?
Thank you.
Well, that's a very complicated question with probably a very...
but a legitimate question.
Legitimate question, yes, sir. You know, we have been had that title of world's policeman for quite a number of years.
That's ISIS right there, of course, the public enemy #1 now.
And now, because of the expansion of this type of terrorism around the world. I think it's greatly public opinion as to why do we have to fight another war and who's going to pay for it. You know, we spend trillions of dollars, you know, supporting these other governments, and unfortunately it seems to me that we're rarely appreciated for it. We give them our money, our lives, our blood, and they still hate us. But I think it's the mentality of that, well, if we be nice, they'll like us at some point.
But if ISIS is gaining power, strength, and control throughout the entire region of Syria, let's say, and Afghanistan, and we sit back and do not much of anything, isn't that sending the wrong message? I mean, we're using airstrikes, but we're kind of halfway in, halfway out.
Well, you're absolutely right. We have to play our part. You know, the World Trade Center attack was the horrendous event that everybody's familiar with. It was on television for years, still on television. But you know, we've been attacked by these, we'll have to call them radical Islamists for years, you know, going back to battleship attacks, blowing up nightclubs and things around the world, the Marine barracks.
Caller, let's take your question. What's your question to Mike Harris?
Well, you were talking about the different Hollywood actors who were in the war. Two of them that come to mind are Jimmy Stewart and Clark Gable. They were both fighter pilots.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I forget the other ones, but they mentioned the program I saw. They mentioned, like, I think 6 of them. And let me tell you, to hear that they did this, I mean, it was kind of surprising. I had no idea that they had taken, you know, had been in the war.
Yeah.
Well, ma'am, I would like to invite you to the museum at your convenience and sit down for 1 hour and watch our video presentation that we have put together about
Hollywood stars.
On Hollywood stars that went, and you will be shocked.
Name some others besides Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable.
Ernest Borgnine, Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, you know, Bob Keenan, Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah.
Just on and on with these fellows.
Didn't Joe DiMaggio also serve?
Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio.
Yes. And there were some ladies in there too, you know, that did support through USO shows and things like that. But we have well over 100 little epitaphs about these different actors from Hollywood, and it's quite interesting. It's captivating when you start watching it. You'll watch the whole thing through.
Right.
So I invite all the public to come and take a look. You know, we put together a nice display, and I'm kind of proud of it. It's a nice.
We're back with Mike Harris and your phone calls. Hey, call in, ask the question. We're running out of time here. Let's see, what's the number? 436 MeTV option 11. The parade is next Tuesday. That's Veterans Day in downtown Fresno. We're back in a moment.
It was 1943 when I went to war. I was almost 19. Some things about those years I've forgotten. Others I'd rather forget.
Listen, I ain't got nobody back home. At least you got somebody. Should hang on to that.
The tank division came through those trees. Get help! Tell them what's coming. Is this heaven? Hell for sure.
Got a call coming out here out of the break. Good morning, caller. Your question to Mike Harris.
Yes, hi, John. Good morning. Great show today. Great to see Mike on the air. And
quickly,
the question that I have is the 1 hour video that he was just mentioning. Is that any time, or do you have a showtime specific? I'd like to bring my kids and maybe sit them down and we'll have them watch it with me.
Okay, thank you.
When's the best time to see that?
Okay.
All right.
It's on a continuous playing loop. You can watch it anytime we're open for business. Just come in, take a seat, and it's there for your convenience.
Right. Okay. Hey, I want to get back to some of the celebrities, and in my day, okay, and a lot of people, this younger generation has forgotten or maybe didn't even know that Bob Hope every year would go overseas during the holidays and entertain the troops. Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, also did the same. He loved the troops, as did Bob Hope. It was a tradition. Those USO trips would end up on NBC as an hour or 2 hour special in prime time. It doesn't seem like we have that today as much as we did, and I think the country misses a guy like Bob Hope or maybe a Robin Williams.
Oh, I think you're very correct. There are folks that they participated in the USO shows and so forth through up through the Vietnam era, and but we do have entertainers that go over now.
But they don't get the fanfare that Bob Hope did.
Right.
Because he'd come back here and they would be broadcast on national TV in prime time.
Right. And I think it's because at that time in history, they were kind of a unique, unusual thing to watch. Nowadays, like I say, it's in your living room every night, and so it's not a special thing. You know?
Right. But to entertain the troops is something special.
Right. One actor, Gary Sinise, comes to mind. I know he's been over a few times. Tremendous patriot and supporter of our troops. Of course, Anne Margaret, you know, in her day, she was America's sweetheart.
That's another one.
You know,
yeah.
She was another one that was just tremendous.
She actually performed with Bob Hope.
Right.
During those USO tours.
Correct. And I don't know as of late she's been over to do anything because she's getting to be an elderly lady.
Yeah.
But no, there's still the folks that go over, and I think they're more in tune with the rock star musician type entertainment.
Right. Okay, let's get back to ISIS for a moment, because this is a group, as I said, gaining power and control in the Middle East, over there in Iraq, parts of Syria. Should we be helping the Assad Syria regime fight ISIS on the ground?
Oh, I'm definitely in support of that.
So we need to put boots on the ground, in your opinion?
I think so. You know, part of the dismay I have for that whole situation is I think the president missed the mark in pulling the troops out when he did. You know, but his political stance is let's end the war, stop the expense, and you know, and the bloodshed. But you know, you don't stop the game at midpoint and think you're going to win. You have to go the distance. You know, you think back, we're still in Korea, keeping that country sovereign for South Korea. We're still in Germany. You know, not so much as a protector, but as an insurance policy. And you can't go into a country that's for the most part uneducated and you know, not used to the Western ways, and give them a small taste of it and expect them to adopt that and then walk away. And that's kind of what we've done there. And I fear the same thing's going to happen in Afghanistan.
You know, the question is, and we really can't answer, but ISIS is recruiting children. You can see children here. They're recruiting them.
Right.
Not only are they recruiting them, but they're Sunni, and they're killing other Sunnis, and they're killing women, children. Obviously, they're killing young men as well. But so, you know, there's no discrimination as to who they want to kill.
It's basically whoever doesn't agree with them, and unfortunately, the public at large, I think, and the masses don't subscribe to their radical ways and their murderous techniques.
But the question is, how big a threat are they to
our
country?
To our country, I think they're a legitimate big threat. You know, it wasn't that difficult for them to take the trade centers down. You know, how hard would it be to bring a dirty bomb across the southern border and set it off in a city? I think we're quite vulnerable, and hopefully the administration in Washington is going to start putting more credence towards that and make that a considerable worry. Because that's my opinion, and I think we do have a threat in this country.
You think they are a threat, but you know, it's hard to verify how big a threat it really is unless you're in the government and see all the security documents and sit inside the security meetings every day.
Right. We have a good network, I think, of knowing who these people are and how to deal with them, but the political climate just does not subscribe to that. So
unless we're hit again.
Unless we're hit again, then it'll be a big uproar.
Yeah, it really will. Yeah. So get over there and see the Legion of Valor Museum. It's the only kind in the country. Mike Harris, anything you want to add about the parade that comes up next Tuesday? Starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Goes for about an hour.
Right. Well, certainly when you're downtown watching the parade, come over towards the museum there at the corner of Inn and Fresno Street, and come through and take a tour. Every day I hear, gee, I didn't know this was here. And for some reason, people in our community do not visit downtown in our spectacular display that we have. So come take a look when you're there for Parade Day.
Good luck on Veterans Day.
Thanks
for being a guest here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Come back again.
I will.
All right. Mike Harris, Legion of Valor Museum. Our thanks to him. And the parade is next Tuesday, 10 a.m. downtown Fresno. Back with another edition of Connect with Me. Tomorrow, we're going to talk to a man who won the quick draw competition nationwide. That's right. He'll be here in the studio live, and we'll see you then. Have a great day.